Hello YouTube, it's James again. And I'm back with I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. I know at the end of my last video, I basically just snapped and said I wasn't gonna read the rest of this thing. But I've taken a minute. I've taken several minutes. And so I think I've taken a couple hours actually. I've eaten some food. I've listened to some music to calm myself down a bit. And now that I'm thinking a bit more clearly, I've decided I should not stop this book. Because that's not fair to you. That's not fair to me. It's more than the book deserves. Let's not even go there. But. So, I'm back. We're going to finish Chapter 5. I may think about doing another video for Chapter 6, but for the moment, we're going to finish Chapter 5. Although I do want to take a moment before I start reading the book to point out that I looked up some of the literature. Nothing too major. I mostly just bopped around to talkorigins.org, actually, like I recommended you do at the end of the last video. So, if you've been doing that, then you probably know. I think I linked directly to an explanation of all the stuff wrong with the creationist argument against abiogenesis. Specifically that the stuff they did with the probabilities of stuff coming into existence. And, I have a firmer understanding of just how stupid that was. And basically what it amounts to is they start with something far more complex than they need to. The actual theory of abiogenesis involves very simple chemicals forming, simple chemical bonds that move on to organic molecules and even organic, self-replicating organic materials, and it all actually makes sense and is very nice and neat. And I'm sure there's problems, of course, with each theory because there's still contention about what theory is accurate and if any theory is accurate and whatever. But it's not as simple as the creationists make it out to be with their seeming belief that a modern bacteria sprung out of nothing. That's not what any theory of abiogenesis says. Any theory. And the big numbers they quote, with the tens to lots of powers, ones with huge numbers of zeros, are based on them starting with a protein or something far more complex than they need to. They are talking about a sequence. They are talking about sequences of single trials going on here. It would take, however many, trillions and trillions of attempts for them to, for whatever it is, whichever chain they picked or whatever, to just, form out of the randomness. That was another thing. They talk about randomness. No, not random. Chemistry and biology are anything but random. The rules governing how particles interact are fairly well understood, and in a lot of cases, very well understood. This random chaos nonsense is something they're making up out of whole cloth. And I believe they mentioned, the idea of a plane being formed in a junkyard tornado. Yeah, that's fucking bullshit. There's observed rules for how chemicals interact that's a little different from how, Boeing 747 parts interact in a tornado. It's friggin' retarded. Anyways. And they talk about, a series of single trials where, you have one in the trillions, quadrillions, whatever. One in a ridiculously large number of things that can happen. And as the article I linked to on Talk Origins points out, that even if you have something that's astronomically improbable like that, there's still a chance it could occur very early on. They made a point about flipping 4 quarters and seeing how long it takes for them to come up all heads, in which case it can happen on the very first try. So, there's that. And the fact that in the primordial soup, as it were, there would be tons and tons, incredibly large numbers even, ones followed by tremendous amounts of zeros, of the precursors to the organic molecules all bumping around and interacting at once, resulting in similarly high numbers of trials happening with the particles. So they could even what they're saying is impossible to happen is actually much more likely than they represent it as. And it's basically just like I was saying whenever they mentioned it. They're just throwing big numbers out there to wow you without the numbers actually meaning anything. You shouldn't even be surprised by now. They don't know anything about evolution. They don't know anything about thermodynamics. They sure as hell don't know anything about probability. Anyways, so we're going to keep on going. We're going to finish off Chapter 5. I may do Chapter 6 even today. If I do keep doing the book, I'm going to just try and knock it out as fast as I can, because you saw my last video. It's beyond ridiculous. But I'm a lot calmer than I was then. Hopefully there'll be less shouting. If any of you are still around watching this after the multiple outbursts in the last video, I hope you'll forgive me. If you're sticking around because you hope there's more outbursts, I can't promise that there won't be, so I guess you can stick around too, if you're just watching this for entertainment value. Anyways, I believe I quit in the middle of Science is a Slave to Philosophy. And we were I think we were in the middle of this list here about bad philosophy resulting in bad science and good science requiring good philosophy. It's an interesting sentiment coming from a philosopher and not a scientist. There didn't look like there was a scientist involved with this project. There were, however, 2 philosophers, so. Anyways. Science cannot be done without philosophy. This is number 1. Philosophical assumptions are utilized in the search for causes and therefore cannot be the result of them. For example, scientists assume by faith that reason and the scientific method allow us to accurately understand the world around us. They cannot be proven by science itself. You can't prove the tools of science, the laws of logic, the law of causality, the principle of uniformity, or the reliability of observation by running some kind of experiment. You have to assume those things are true in order to do the experiment. So science is built on philosophy. Unfortunately, many so-called scientists are very poor philosophers. And I'm going to take a page out of their book in simply disproving what they're saying here. They say, I'm going to hone in specifically on the law of causality, because it's one they've used themselves to prove stuff, talking about everything, everything that comes into being has a cause or whatever. And I'm going to note with scientific observation that you can prove the law of causation, of causality. You see this this metal stick? When I let go, it'll fall. It fell. The cause was my letting go of it. Also gravity. Now, there are many causes. It falls. That proves the law of causality. That's like a dramatic... I'm sure there's plenty of arguments to be made against that, but... at this level, it's really simple. When you do something, something happens. That's the law of causality. I don't hold with their claim that you can't put reason on trial. Reason is proven itself time and time again. You use reason every day. Even the most unreasonable person, even the stupidest idiot uses reason every day. That's pretty condemning. I don't know. It's just really interesting. They keep trying to use reason to prove things, and then say reason can't prove reason and stuff. It's a very confused argument. One might even go as far as to say they have no idea what they're talking about. I certainly have trouble understanding what they're talking about. And I don't think it's a failing on my part. That's for sure. 2. Philosophical assumptions can dramatically impact scientific conclusions. If a scientist assumes beforehand that only natural causes are possible, then probably no amount of evidence will convince him that intelligence created the first one-celled amoeba or any other designed entity. When Darwinists presupposed that intelligent causes are impossible, then natural laws are the only game in town. Likewise, if a creationist rules out natural causes beforehand, and we don't know of any who do, I think all of them do, the research these people do, the research that the people they talk about as intelligent design proponents and people who work for the Discovery Institute and just the intelligent design crowd, they are deadlocked serious that God created the universe. And it's so incredibly obvious. You'd have to be as blind as they are not to see it. Like, I'm getting really sick of their claims that, it's the Darwinists who are blindly adhering to their tenets of faith, because they're really not. They really aren't. That's how science works. The entirety of science is based on whatever research you conduct, whatever, hypotheses you try and validate, all of your research, you show it to everyone else so that they can, help figure out if you're right or wrong. And that's how science has progressed for, that's probably how science has always progressed, to some degree or another. And it's taken many forms. I mean, the modern peer review process is just that, semi-modern. But, anyways, and what you gotta understand is, these guys, they don't hold with the peer review process. They make up shit about conspiracies to, put them down because they don't have evidence. They don't have anything. All the papers they publish get torn to shreds by respectable scientists and journals. The only people that support them are themselves. Like, their entire group just supports itself. They're the only people that agree with them. Everything they do gets just torn to shreds. Like I've said, they produce papers and shit of such low quality that I, with my no background in anything, can poke holes in their arguments. That's what we're dealing with here. A bunch of hypocrites and liars, proven liars, who misquote, misrepresent, misunderstand everything. All for the glory of their creationist beliefs. It's the truth. That's not bias, that's the truth. That's the truth of the matter. That's who these people are. That's what they do. And I've started bringing it up lately because they started bringing up, famous intelligent design people. They brought up the guy responsible for the intelligent design movement. I didn't bring these people into this. They brought these people into this. They act like these people deserve, your respect, that you should listen to their opinion. The opinions of a lawyer on biology. It's that simple. They're bringing in discredited idiots. sycophantic fools. But a scientist who is open-minded to both natural and intelligent causes can follow the evidence wherever it leads. We've followed the evidence to where it leads. It leads to evolution. And, you know, possibly abiogenesis. Seems fairly likely. Science doesn't really say anything. Scientists do. Data are always interpreted by scientists. When those scientists let their personal preferences or unproven philosophical assumptions dictate their interpretation of the evidence, they do exactly what the accused religious people are doing. They let their ideology dictate their conclusions. And yeah, that happens sometimes. You know who it happens to most? Creationists. When that's the case, their conclusions should be questioned because they may be nothing more than philosophical presuppositions passed off as scientific facts. And you know another thing? Creationism. There's a reason scientists ignore creationism as a theory. Besides being discredited at every turn, it's pointless. It's meritless. It offers no... The point of a theory, the point of a hypothesis, is to provide a framework for further predictions, for further results. Creationism doesn't predict anything. It doesn't hypothesize anything useful. It postulates that God made the universe. And as I've already, I've very angrily stated, God did it is not an answer that's of any value to science. Or as far as, you know, as far as I'm concerned, it's not a valid... it's not a useful answer to anyone. But, let's keep going. Materialism makes reason impossible. When you get down to the root of the problem, you find the bad science of the Darwinists results from the false philosophy of naturalism or materialism at the foundation of their worldview. Why is materialism false? Here are 5 reasons why materialism is not reasonable. First, as we've already pointed out, there is a message resident in life, technically called specified complexity, and I think I've covered this before, but specified complexity they don't mean anything. That's dumb. They're, you know, they're projecting. They're projecting intelligence onto something that does not, you know, imply it. And they don't have a good definition of complexity, for one thing. Like I said, the arrangement of the blades of grass on your lawn is complex. It's not, they're not saying anything. Cannot be explained materially. Except, I've been talking about this entire time, you can't explain this all materially. They're not disproving anything. They're trying their damnedest, and they think that if they can disprove, you know, abiogenesis, materialism, whatever, they think that if they can disprove that, it proves what they think is true. And it doesn't. Even if you disprove all of, you know, known science, it won't make what you want to say true unless you actually have evidence supporting that it's true. All of your evidence is just arguments against other stuff. And that's not good science. That's not good anything. It's destructive criticism. You're tearing it down, and you're trying to tear down stuff. You're trying to tear down basically all of accumulated human knowledge. I know it sounds dramatic, but they're trying to throw all of modern progress out the window. And they're not offering anything to replace it with, except God. And like I said, God's not an answer. God did it is not an answer. It's an excuse for ignorance. What they want... It sounds dramatic, but it's true. They want to replace all of modern knowledge with ancient ignorance. It's the truth. This message cannot be explained by non-intelligent natural laws any more than the message in this book can be explained by the non-intelligent laws of ink and paper. That's moronic, and you already know why. Second, human thoughts and theories are not comprised only of materials. Chemicals are certainly involved in the human thought process, but they cannot explain all human thoughts. The theory of materialism isn't made of molecules. Likewise, someone thoughts this is a huge, just fucking useless argument against, theories and philosophy. I don't want to understand. There's parts of this that confuse me that I don't want to understand just because they're so dumb. Likewise, someone's thoughts, whether they be of love or hate, are not chemicals. How much does love weigh? What's the chemical composition of hate? I don't know the answer to that. It'd be interesting to know, though. Ask a biologist. I mean, obviously we don't have, the full key to, the human brain, what all the chemicals do, and how it all works. But I think we know more about it than this guy thinks we do. I think if you asked a real scientist, they'd probably have some answers here for this stuff. Yeah, these are absurd questions because thoughts, convictions, emotions are not completely material-based. Since they're not completely material-based, materialism is false. Whatever. Third, if life were nothing more than materials, then we'd be able to take all the materials of life, which are the same materials found in dirt, and make a living being. We cannot. There's clearly something beyond materials in life. This is stupid. What materials can explain why one body is alive and another is dead? Both contain the same chemicals. Why is a body alive one minute and dead the next? What combination of materials can account for consciousness? Even Atkins, in his debate with Craig, admitted that explaining consciousness is a great problem for atheists. Mostly because they're actually trying to explain it. I imagine if a creationist tried to explain it, it wouldn't be very hard, on account of them not trying to explain anything. What separates a living body from a dead body? We may already know, and I don't know, I'm not a biologist. Even if we don't, we're working on it, harder than you are. The soul doesn't answer anything. It's a non-answer like God. You can't measure the soul. That doesn't... He's like... There's a reason materialism is popular, even if and when it has flaws. It's because materialism is useful. This metaphysical stuff doesn't help you. It doesn't help anyone. You can't use the soul to synthesize new medicine. It's useless. It's pointless. They're tearing down materialism and offering, the dreams of stones in its place. Fourth, if materialism is true, then everyone in all of human history who has ever had any kind of spiritual experience has been completely mistaken. It's a possibility. It's a real possibility. I've read articles about scientists artificially recreating spiritual experiences just by messing around with brain chemistry and magnetic fields and stuff, even electrical impulses. It's cool stuff, unlike this book. While this is possible, given the vast number of spiritual experiences, it does not seem likely. This is argumentum ad populum, an argument from the people. A lot of people think something is true, so it must be true. It's a humongous logical fallacy, and is dumber than any mistake they've pointed out one of our scientists making. So, I probably should say one of our scientists. I should say one of a real scientist. There we go. Yeah, they've any problems they've pointed out a real scientist making. It's difficult to believe that every great spiritual leader and thinker of the history of humanity, including some of the most rational, scientific, and critical minds ever, have all been completely wrong about their spiritual experience. This includes Abraham, Moses, Isaiah, Kepler, Newton, Pascal, and Jesus Christ himself. And I'm sure they're going to get into that, but everything I've ever read on it says there's not good... I don't want to cover this too much before we actually get there, because I'm sure they'll talk about it. But in reading books like these before and looking up a lot of stuff, there's not... I haven't seen a lot of evidence that Jesus Christ even existed at all. We'll leave it like that. Well, I'm going to leave it at that until we get to it in the book, because I don't want to distract from what we're talking about here, which is them tearing down materialism and replacing it with nothing. Finally, if materialism is true, then reason itself is impossible, for if mental processes are nothing but chemical reactions in the brain, then there is no reason to believe that anything is true, including the theory of materialism. Chemicals can't evaluate whether or not a theory is true. Chemicals don't reason, they react. Whatever. This guy is an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's proven that time and time again. His little pseudo-philosophical fucking bullshit here is not worth the paper it's printed on. My little sister asked me would I tell the friend that recommended this book to me, since I told her that I was quitting reading it, and I've reconsidered that position, obviously. But what I told my sister was that I'd tell the friend that this book is not worthy to be toilet paper. It's not worthy of, you know, cleaning my rear end. That's kind of gross, but I meant it at the time. I think I still mean it. This is not... This is anti-science dogma dressed up as a criticism of... dressed up as some kind of... That's not even... It's not... They're trying to dress it up as a legitimate criticism of scientific materialism, and it's not. It's not a legitimate criticism of any... It's a legitimate criticism of itself. This is supremely ironic because Darwinists who claim to champion truth and reason have made truth and reason impossible by their theory of materialism. Even when Darwinists are right about something, their worldview gives us no reason to believe them because reason itself is impossible in a world governed only by chemical and physical forces. Not only is reason impossible in a Darwinian world, but the Darwinist assertion that we should rely on reason alone cannot be justified. Why not? Because reason actually requires faith. I've talked about this before. I've hated on them about it before. And I want to note right now, they're not offering, like, even beyond not offering anything really useful in something's position, they're not offering anything at all here. They're just, like, what do you propose we use instead of reason? Probably the Bible. I don't know. It's hard for me having to deal with this. I'm used to hanging out with smart people, you know? Having to deal with this just radical ignorance, this radical stupidity it's draining me. It's draining having to read this because it's just that bad. Jay Budziszewski points out that the motto "reason alone" is nonsense anyway. Reason itself presupposes faith. Why? Because a defense of reason by reason is circular, therefore worthless. Our only guarantee that human reason works is God who made it. And yeah, let's replace... That's their argument. Replace reason with God. Like I said, God is a non-answer to anything. God is a useless answer. God is pointless. Let's unpack Budziszewski's point by considering the source of reason. Our ability to reason can come from one of only two places. Either our ability to reason arose from pre-existing intelligence, or it rose from mindless nature. The atheists, Darwinists, materialists believe by faith that our minds rose from mindless matter without intelligent intervention. We say it is by faith because it contradicts all scientific observation. It doesn't, and I'm going to keep saying that because it doesn't. And these people are dead wrong, and these people are dumb, and these people are ignorant. And I'm going to keep on saying that because it's true. Maybe not the dumb part. Maybe they're smart. Like, if the ones that aren't dumb, though, are deliberate liars. Like, the ones who aren't dumb are the worst of them. And are almost always exposed to be deliberately misinforming and lying to the people they're trying to teach. It's terrible. It's just awful. To my friend, you can't have read this, can you? This book, have you read this? This is awful. This isn't... You can't give what you haven't got, yet materialists believe that dead, unintelligent matter produced intelligent life. This is like believing that the Library of Congress resulted from an explosion in a printing shop. And once again, that was the metaphor they used, not the tornado in a junkyard producing a Boeing 747. Once again, there are known... The chemical process, the process by which chemicals interact are known. They aren't random chance. It's not like an explosion in a printing shop. It makes much more sense to believe that the human mind is made in the image of the great mind, God. In other words, our minds can apprehend truth and can reason beyond reality because they were built by the architect of truth, reality, and reason itself. Materialism cannot explain reason any more than it can explain life. Materialism is just not reasonable, therefore we don't have enough faith to be materialists. I hate these people. Like... I know I said I try not to hate people in particular, but these people are just despicable. I can't hate the average Christian who hasn't, put, a lot of thought into their beliefs. Or even the average Christian who has. I can't hate them. I can't even really, do anything but just kind of feel bad for them that they don't understand... what's going on. I can be mad at these guys, though. These guys are despicable. Like, if they're smart enough to write this book, they're smart enough to recognize some of the claims they're making are bullshit. Otherwise, they're just incredibly deluded, and then I guess I don't hate them. I feel so incredibly sorry for them, because then they're clearly insane. The atheist versus the critical thinking consultant. The very fact that Darwinists think they have reasons to be atheists actually presupposes that God exists. How so? Because reasons require that this universe be a reasonable one that presupposes there is order, logic, design, and truth. But order, logic, design, and truth are human constructions that in no way are presupposed by the universe or any real fucking logic. I'm sorry. But order, logic, design, and truth can only exist and be known if there is an unchangeable objective source and standard of such things. To say something is unreasonable, Darwinists must know what reasonable is. To say something is not designed, Darwinists must know what designed is. To say something is designed, you have to know what designed is, you assholes. You're defeating your own arguments again. Stop doing that. Darwinists must know what truth is, and so forth. Like all non-theistic worldviews, Darwinism borrows from the theistic worldview in order to make its own view intelligible. Darwinism isn't even a real worldview. It's a made-up worldview that they think people hold based on their false beliefs about evolution. They think... This tendency of atheists to borrow unwittingly from the theistic worldview was beautifully exposed by Arthur Pete Pacino during a curriculum meeting for the state of Georgia's Department of Education. Pete, who was working for an internationally known Christian ministry at the time, was slated to be on a subcommittee to review and improve the 6th to 12th grade School curriculum and subjects such as U.S. government law, ethics, and character training. The first of a week-long series of meetings was held in a large room where all the subcommittees were given an opportunity to introduce themselves. Pete, who got held up in traffic, arrived late, missed the introductions, and started heading for a seat. When the subcommittee chairman noticed Pete walking in, he told him they had already introduced themselves and asked Pete to do the same by giving his name, background, and occupation. Pete gave his name and said that he had a degree in mechanical engineering. Pete thought to himself, I certainly don't want to bring Christianity in this by telling him I work for an international Christian ministry, so he cryptically said, I currently work for a not-for-profit organization as a critical thinking consultant. The chairman asked, a critical thinking consultant? What exactly does a critical thinking consultant do? The chairman persisted. Well, we're already running late, and I don't want to take up the committee's time, Pete reasoned, but you'll find out during the week. These people are asshole. Look at this guy just being a fucking ponce. Just poncing in and being an asshole. It's a little dishonest not to bring Christianity into it, isn't it? Isn't that kind of the point? Come on, profess your faith, cop up to it. Are you ashamed of it? Are you afraid you're going to get in trouble if you bring up Christianity? This is a school meeting. You should get in trouble if you bring up Christianity. Schools are supposed to be regulated by the government, and the government is supposed to be separated, from God because of the separation of church and state, which is integral and completely thrown by the wayside a lot of the time. And it's bad. And there'll probably be something bad in here as an example of it. As the week progressed, the committee debated various topics such as diversity, tolerance, human rights, and other controversial issues. At one point, when they were discussing psychology standards, Pete noted that the standards did not contain definition of personhood. This was a gaping hole in the psychology curriculum, so Pete submitted the following definition based on a section of Mortimer Adler's book, Haves Without Have-Nots. Course Psychology, topic, uniqueness, standard, evaluates the uniqueness of human nature and the concept of personhood. 1, intellect, conceptual thought. 2, freedom to choose, free will. 3, ethical responsibility, standards. 4, moral accountability, obligations. And 5, inalienable rights of personhood. As soon as this standard was placed on the table, an educator sitting across from Pete, who had made it known that she was an atheist, was about to challenge the standard. Before she could do that, Pete stopped her and said to the group, if anyone were to disagree with this standard, they would be doing the following. The person would be engaging me in conceptual thought, as in 1 above. That person would be exercising his or her freedom to do so, as in 2. The person must think that there is an ethical responsibility to teach what is right true. The person is seeking to hold me morally accountable to teach the truth. That person has the right to disagree with my position. So if one were to disagree with these criteria, that person would actually confirm the validity of each point of these criteria. And that's an intellectually dishonest argument that you don't really have to think that hard about to fucking prove wrong. And in fact, somebody's objection... I don't even... Sorry, I'm getting tired, and it's getting really hard here to deal with this. I want to just assume you know why that's stupid. And once again, this person is being a fucking ponce. Is poncing in and poncing around and being a poncing asshole. The group became rather quiet for a moment. Then the chairman spoke up and said, now we know what a critical thinking consultant does. With that, he told the committee secretary to include the standard in the recommendations. With a little critical thinking, we see that the Darwinian worldview collapses not only from a lack of evidence, but also because Darwinists must borrow from the theistic worldview as they attempt to make their case. Intellect, free will, objective morality, and human rights, as well as reason, logic, design, and truth, can exist only if God exists. I don't see where they proved that. Like, at all. They didn't... They're just saying that that's theirs. They're saying, they're taking all that stuff and they're licking it and going, it's mine now. You don't want it now, it's gross, I touched it. It's mine now. Darwinists assume some or all these realities, when they defend their atheistic worldview, they can't have it both ways. Whatever. Just whatever. It's like... You haven't proved anything, except that you're ignorant assholes. So even when I don't have a direct refutation to what they're saying, they're still ignorant assholes. They've proven themselves to be ignorant about major things. Darwinists have the wrong box top. In the introduction, we said the worldview is like a box top that allows you to place the many pieces of life's puzzle into a complete, cohesive picture. If you have the right box top, then the pieces make sense in light of the complete picture. But what happens if you keep discovering pieces that don't fit the box top you have? Common sense would tell you you've got the wrong box top, so you need to go look for the right one. Unfortunately, the Darwinists won't do this, except that they do. That's the entire point of science. That is the entire point of science. When you find something that disproves something you thought to be true, you figure out what you thought was true that's wrong. You change the worldview. That is what science does. That is what scientists do. That's what that's what the materialist scientists they hate so much do every day. Every minute of every day, they're trying to do that. They're trying to find the pieces that don't fit and see what they do fit. They're trying to find the box top for life. These people are just waving around a crayon drawing they did on a piece of paper and saying that it's their box top. And that all the pieces fit. And if they don't like the pieces someone else has, they fucking alter the pieces. They cut the pieces so that they don't fit. And then say, you know, you're doing it wrong. When they're fucking destroying everything. This is really, I take this really seriously because this is important stuff, like they said. Every step of the way, they accuse scientists of doing what these guys are doing. Every step of the way. Their argument is, their arguments are just terrible. This is all so much. This is so much. I'm in pain. I've had a headache ever since I stopped the last video. Their preconceived box top shows a picture without intelligent causes, yet as they themselves acknowledge, they've discovered many pieces of the puzzle that have the clear appearance of being intelligently designed. No, they don't acknowledge that. In effect, they're trying to fit theistic pieces into their atheistic, materialistic puzzle. How do they do this? Instead of discarding the wrong box top and finding the right one, Darwinists simply insist that the pieces aren't really what they appear to be. They try to fit every piece from the precisely designed universe to the information-rich single cell into a puzzle that doesn't have those pieces in it. In doing so, they disregard observation, which is the very essence of the empirical science they claim to champion. As they themselves admit, Darwinists are philosophically committed to their box top regardless of what the puzzle pieces look like. They're not, and we've talked about it, and this is just getting repetitive. There's no new information here. There's not really any information here at all. This entire book is just a scathing criticism against itself. How do you find the right box top to the puzzle of life? Arriving at the right box top is not a matter of preference. If you like atheism, I like theism. No, it's a matter of objective fact. By using the self-evident first principles of logic and correct principles of scientific investigation, we discovered in chapters 3 and 4 that this is a theistic universe. We didn't. I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna keep pointing that out every time they say they proved something. They didn't. They've proved nothing. They've proved nothing except that they're ignorant of science. They're ignorant of evolution. As a subset of science, they're ignorant of the second law of thermodynamics. They're ignorant of probability. They're ignorant of philosophy, almost certainly, despite being philosophers. If this is a theistic universe, then naturalism is false. If naturalism is false, then Darwinists may not be interpreting the evidence correctly. Having the right box top is important because it provides the right context for interpreting the evidence. The context is the larger environment in which the evidence appears. If you have the wrong context, you may come to the wrong conclusion about evidence you're observing. For example, if I tell you I just witnessed a man slashing open the stomach of a woman with a knife, you'd probably assume that man did something wrong, except that you're making this fucking observation, and I know you're a fucking ponce, so I know you're talking about a C-section. But look what happens when I reveal to you that the context, the environment in which this incident took place. We were at a hospital delivery room, the man was a doctor, and the baby's heart had just stopped. What do you think about the man now? Once you understand the environment, your entire view of the evidence has changed. You now understand the man... You now consider the man a hero rather than a villain because he was really trying to save the baby's life. I never considered him a villain because I knew exactly what kind of stupid fucking example you were making. You worthless piece of scum. In the same way, the evidence from biology must be interpreted in light of the larger known environment. As we've already discussed, the larger known environment is that this is a theistic universe. Yep. Oh, we've already discovered. I was going to say, yeah, they've discussed it. No, you haven't discovered anything. You've discovered nothing. Except bullshit. Guess if you stick your head far enough up your own ass, you'll discover something. How it relates to the universe at large. Well... there's actually an immaterial, powerful, and intelligent being beyond the natural world who created the universe and designed it precisely to allow life on Earth. In other words, we already know beyond a reasonable doubt that the designer is part of the box top, because the evidence shows that he has already designed this awesome universe with amazing complexity and precision. In light of the fact that this designer exists, when we see biological systems that even Darwinists like Richard Dawkins recognize give the appearance of having been designed for a purpose, once again, that you have the appearance of... It doesn't mean that the person thinks for a second that they were. And, you know, Richard Dawkins, of all people, clearly does not. Maybe we ought to conclude that they really were designed for a purpose. And, yeah, but no. There's no... You've no evidence for your... You've provided no evidence for your position. This entire book, you have no evidence for your position. William Dembski points out, if a creature looks like a dog, smells like a dog, barks like a dog, feels like a dog, and pants like a dog, the burden of evidence lies with the person insisting the creature isn't a dog. Since the universe is created and designed, then we should expect life to be created and designed as well. At least it's possible that life was created by intelligence. Ruling out that possibility beforehand is clearly illegitimate. We didn't I haven't ruled it out beforehand. I don't know that I've ruled it out at all. I know that these people have ruled out non-intelligent design, much as they accuse, you know, Darwinists of ruling out intelligent design. Which they haven't. If there was any evidence for intelligent design, scientists would be vaguely interested. Like I said, though, creationism doesn't make any predictions, it doesn't make any useful hypotheses, it has no useful anything. It's a worthless idea. Like I said, you can't synthesize medicine from a soul. There's a reason materialism is so prevalent. It's because it gets stuff done. So the conclusion that life is the product of an intelligent designer makes sense because it's not a lone piece of evidence. There's no evidence. You've presented no evidence. It's consistent with other scientific findings, or to continue with our jigsaw puzzle metaphor, it's a piece that fits perfectly with the other pieces of this puzzle. It doesn't. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You've presented no evidence. You've presented no evidence of anything but your own ignorance in this book, and it's driving me up the wall. I don't know what I was expecting from this book, but I know I was expecting more. I know I was expecting something smarter. And I probably shouldn't have been, but I was. Once again, I have to ask my friend, have you read this book? Before you recommended this to me, had you read it? Because I don't want to believe that you have. Because the reason I expected more was I assumed you had, and I respected you as being a... I respected your opinion and your thoughts, but have you read this? Did you read this? I can't wait to talk about it in person. Summary and conclusion. Since we've covered a lot of ground in this chapter, let's sum it up with a few short points. Oh good, short points. I like those. Let's me go through everything, all just in one quick chain. 1. Life does not consist merely of chemicals. If that were the case, mixing the chemicals of life in a test tube would produce life. That's stupid, that's an oversimplification, and the fact that you even want anyone to think that is intellectually dishonest because there's no way you don't know better. This person is intellectually dishonest, is a liar, and a bullshitter. Life clearly consists of more than chemicals. It also includes specified complexity, a non-term that means nothing, and has no real definition, which comes only from a mind. Therefore, materialism is false. It's not false. I don't know. I'm sure materialism has its problems, has its issues, has its criticisms. These are not legitimate criticisms of scientific materialism. Don't be mistaken for a second. There are numerous additional reasons why materialism is false, including the fact that reason itself would be impossible in a materialistic universe, based on your fucking a priori assumptions and assertions, to use your fucking term. 2, there are no known natural laws that create specified complexity. Once again, specified complexity isn't anything. It's what rocks dream of. It's as nothing as the fucking fuck. That was not very coherent, I apologize. Only intelligence has been observed creating specified complexity. Once again, specified complexity isn't a thing. And if it is, it sure as hell isn't what they're saying it is. The simplest life consists of amazing specified complexity equivalent to 1,000 complete sets of Encyclopedia Britannica. Einstein said God doesn't play dice with the universe. Okay, that quote is taken out of context. It means nothing in this context. He was talking about, quantum physics and, spooky movement at a distance. Science is a search for causes that is built on philosophy. There are only 2 types of causes, intelligent and natural, but Darwinists philosophically rule out intelligent causes before they even look at the evidence. That's why when Darwinists look at those 1,000 encyclopedias, despite observing and recognizing their obvious design, they assert that their cause must be natural. Fuck them. Fuck these guys. Spontaneous generation of life, which Darwinism requires to get the theory started, has never been observed. Once again, that's just... has never been observed. There's so many things we know about in the universe that haven't been directly observed that that doesn't mean anything. That's meaningless. It's a meaningless assertion. It's believed in by faith. It's not. There's evidence for it. Abiogenesis may actually... I don't know. Abiogenesis is probably widely accepted, and any contention is probably over the finer details. And in light of the strong cosmological and teleological evidence, cosmological evidence that was nothing and teleological evidence that was nothing, Darwinian belief in naturalism or materialism is an article of faith. Hence, Darwinism is nothing more than secular religion masquerading as science. Once again, I reiterate, these people know nothing of science. They know only faith and can see only faith. When all you've got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. The skeptic may say, wait a minute, you're moving much too fast. Oh god, I wish they were moving faster, believe me. I wish I'd been out of this chapter 20 pages ago. What makes you think that intelligent design is scientific? Isn't ID just another case of God of the Gaps fallacy? Yes, it is a God of the Gaps fallacy. That's what intelligent design is. Prematurely bringing God into the picture because you haven't found a natural cause yet? Why should we give up looking for a natural cause? In fact, it seems like ID is just that Bible-thumping six-day creationism being smuggled into the public debate under a new name. It is. And what about the evidence for the evolution of new life forms that you have yet to mention? Answers to these and other Darwinist claims are coming in the next chapter. Not only will we address these claims, but we'll also provide more pieces to the puzzle that confirm that the intelligent design people, not the Darwinists, have the right box top. And I'd like to take a second to mention that they're coming up with all these labels. They're labeling people atheists left and right, Darwinists left and right, materialists left and right. They're friggin' pigeonholing everyone for no reason, with no right, no evidence, no whatever. Atheism is all over the place. there's, religious atheists. There's, and Buddhism is largely an atheistic religion. I don't believe they have a god. And then, you've got, like, the cult of Raelian and other, like, alien-worshipping cults that don't believe in a theistic god. They just believe in aliens, which is still dumb for all the same reasons. But, And then there's Darwinists that aren't even a thing. Darwinists are an army of strawmen created by creationists that they tear down based on a fucking ludicrous preschool understanding of evolution, where they think evolution says cows can magically turn into frogs or whatever. Bacteria spontaneously appear out of the fucking water, which is not what evolution says. It's not what abiogenesis says. So yeah, that's that. That's chapter 5. I buckled down. I finished it. I may be back here in a few minutes with chapter 6 if I feel up to it. Chapter 6 is called New Life Forms from the Goo to You via the Zoo, which doesn't sound promising. In fact, if I had to guess, I'd say that they're just going to go further and further into their butchering of evolution, which I know I was excited about early on in Chapter 5. It's getting old. It's getting old real fast. So yeah, I'll see you in whatever video. I'll see you next time on YouTube. I'll see you next time, YouTube. If you've got any comments, if you've got corrections, if you've got whatever comments, shoot me a message, shoot me an email. Whatever, I want to hear from you. Have a good day. I'm not.